The deadly touch. Celine pressed herself against the cold metal wall of the space station's maintenance tunnel, her silvery skin reflecting the dim emergency lights. The familiar ache in her chest returned, the weight of knowing that her very existence brought death to others. Her species, the Lumini, were known throughout the galaxy for their ethereal beauty and advanced technological achievements. What most didn't know was that a small percentage of them carried a rare genetic variation that made their biochemistry lethal to other life forms. The sound of boots echoing through the corridor made her pulse quicken. The Syndicate's hunters were getting closer. They'd been pursuing her across 3 star systems, determined to capture and study her unique condition. More accurately, they wanted to weaponize it. Life signs detected in sublevel 3, a mechanical voice announced. Proceeding with containment protocols. Celine cursed under her breath. The station's automated systems were working against her now. She needed to find a way off this station before they cornered her. The last ship she'd seen dock was a small trading vessel, but approaching it meant crossing the main hangar, exposing herself to the hunters. A sudden explosion rocked the station, throwing her against the opposite wall. Warning klaxons blared as emergency shutters began closing throughout the facility. Through the chaos, she heard shouting and weapons fire. Someone else was fighting the hunters. Taking advantage of the confusion, Celine sprinted toward the hangar. She rounded a corner and collided with a solid figure, sending them both sprawling. Her heart stopped. Physical contact meant certain death for whoever she'd hit. "Watch where you're going," a male voice groaned. Celine scrambled backward, waiting for the inevitable convulsions and death that her touch brought. But the man simply stood up, brushing off his leather jacket. You're not dead," she whispered in disbelief. The man looked at her with piercing blue eyes, confusion crossing his features. "Should I be?" Before she could respond, plasma fire scorched the wall beside them. The man reacted instantly, pulling her behind a cargo container. "Friends of yours?" he asked, drawing a weapon. "Hunters," Celine explained, still staring at him in wonder. "But how are you alive?" "My touch kills everything." He glanced at her, raising an eyebrow. "Name's Nathan. And I'm starting to think this isn't a coincidence." He fired several shots around the container, forcing their pursuers to take cover. "I'm here investigating rumors about a biological weapon." "Guess that's you?" Celine flinched at the term. "I'm not a weapon. I'm a mistake. A genetic anomaly that the Syndicate wants to replicate." Nathan nodded, his expression softening. "Well, my ship's in the auxiliary hangar. I'd say we both need to get out of here. Want to tag along?" More hunters appeared at both ends of the corridor. Nathan cursed, checking his weapon's charge. "Running low. Please tell me you have a better idea than shooting our way out." Celine's mind raced. The station's environmental systems were controlled from a nearby maintenance hub. If she could access them. "Can you get me to Junction B7? I can trigger a localized atmospheric purge." "Dangerous and probably illegal," Nathan grinned. "I like it. Stay close." They moved through the station like shadows, Nathan's combat experience complementing Celine's knowledge of the station's layout. When they reached the junction, Celine's fingers flew over the control panel while Nathan kept watch. "Company coming," he warned. "Lots of them." "Almost done," Celine muttered, bypassing the last safety protocol. "When I say run, head for section C12 and hold your breath." The hunters appeared at the end of the corridor, weapons raised. "Surrender the asset," their leader commanded. Celine pressed the final sequence. "Run." They sprinted down the opposite corridor as emergency barriers slammed shut behind them. The sound of rushing air and shouting followed, then silence. The hunters would live, but they'd be unconscious for hours. Nathan led them through the auxiliary hangar to a sleek vessel that barely qualified as a merchant ship. "Welcome aboard the Starcaster," he said, starting the launch sequence. "We should be safe once we hit hyperspace." As the station shrank behind them, Celine studied her unlikely savior. "Why did you help me? And how are you immune to my touch?" Nathan plotted their course before turning to her. "Let's just say humans have a few surprises of our own. We're a lot harder to kill than most species think." His expression grew serious. "As for helping you, I've spent my career tracking people who turn others into weapons. I'm not about to let it happen again." Celine felt hope for the first time in years. "So what now?" "Now?" Nathan checked their trajectory. "Now we figure out why you're unique among your people, why humans are immune, and how to stop the syndicate from using that knowledge to hurt others." He smiled. "But first, there's someone I think you should meet, a scientist who specializes in xenobiology. She might be able to help us understand your condition." As they accelerated toward hyperspace, Celine watched the stars blur into streaks of light. For so long, she'd been running from what she was. Perhaps it was time to start running toward something instead, toward answers, toward purpose, and toward the first person who'd survived her touch. What neither of them knew was that their meeting had set in motion events that would reshape the relationship between humans and aliens forever. The syndicate was merely the beginning, and the truth about Celine's condition would prove far more complex than either of them imagined. Trust and tests. The Starcaster dropped out of hyperspace near a remote research station orbiting a gas giant. Through the viewport, Celine watched swirls of purple and gold dance across the planet's atmosphere, casting an ethereal glow on the station's silver surface. Her reflection showed the exhaustion in her luminescent eyes. They'd been traveling for 3 days, taking irregular paths to shake any pursuit. "Dr. Reese is unconventional," Nathan said, initiating docking procedures. "But she's the best xenobiologist in the outer colonies, and more importantly, she can be trusted." Celine shifted uncomfortably in her seat. "You still haven't explained how you found me, or why you're so certain humans are immune to my touch." Nathan's hands paused over the controls. "Because you're not the first Lumini with this condition I've encountered." He turned to face her, his expression grave. 6 months ago, I investigated a secret research facility. They'd captured someone like you, a young Lumini male. By the time I got there..." He trailed off, jaw tightening. "Let's just say what the syndicate did to him is why I started tracking their operations." The docking clamps engaged with a metallic thud. Celine processed this revelation, her silver skin shimming with emotion. "What was his name?" "Talon. He left research data encoded in his DNA, data I couldn't decrypt until I found another Lumini with the same genetic marker." Nathan stood, offering his hand. "That's why I was looking for you, Celine. You might be the key to understanding what they're trying to create." The station's airlock cycled open, revealing a tall woman with dark skin and close-cropped gray hair. Her lab coat bore patches from a dozen different research institutions. "You must be the one causing all the fuss," she said, studying Celine with keen interest. "I'm Dr. Reese. Welcome to my humble laboratory." The research station's interior was a maze of equipment and specimens, each carefully contained behind force fields. Dr. Reese led them to a secure medical bay, explaining her work along the way. "I've spent my career studying evolutionary adaptations between species. Nathan sent me your preliminary scans, fascinating stuff. Your biochemistry shouldn't be possible, yet here you are. Can you help me understand why I'm like this?" Celine asked. "Why my touch kills everyone except humans? That's what we're going to find out." Dr. Reese activated a series of scanning devices. "But first, I need to know everything about when this started." Celine recounted her story, how she'd first discovered her lethal touch when her childhood pet died instantly from her caress. How her parents had hidden her away, protecting her from those who would exploit her condition. How the syndicate had eventually found her anyway. As she spoke, Dr. Reese's expression grew increasingly troubled. These readings, they're not natural. Someone engineered this condition into your genetic code, likely before you were born. The question is why? A sudden alarm blared through the station. Nathan checked his communicator, cursing. We've got company. Multiple ships just dropped out of hyperspace. Dr. Reese moved with practiced efficiency, downloading data to portable devices. Take the emergency exit through the specimen storage. I'll wipe the systems. You're coming with us, Nathan insisted. The older woman shook her head. Someone needs to stay and destroy the research. Go. I've transmitted the relevant data to your ship. Celine grabbed Nathan's arm. We can't leave her. Your life is worth more than my research, Dr. Reese said firmly. What they did to you, it's part of something bigger. Something dangerous. Find Talon's research facility. The answers you need are there. The sound of breaching charges echoed through the station. Nathan pulled Celine toward the exit, but she resisted, tears streaming down her face. I'm tired of people dying because of me. Then live, Dr. Reese commanded. Live and find the truth. She pressed a data crystal into Celine's hand. This contains everything I discovered about your condition. Now go. They ran through the specimen storage, the sounds of combat growing behind them. The Starcaster's engines were already warming up when they reached it. As they lifted off, Celine watched through the viewport as charges detonated throughout the research station, destroying any trace of Dr. Reese's work. She knew they were coming, Celine realized, clutching the data crystal. She was prepared for this. Nathan programmed a series of rapid jumps. Andrea Reese has been fighting the syndicate longer than I have. She knew the risks. He glanced at the crystal. Question is, what did she find that was worth dying to protect? They linked the crystal to the ship's computer. Complex genetic sequences filled the screen, along with Dr. Reese's notes. Celine's breath caught as she read. This says my condition isn't just engineered, it's evolving. Adapting. But that's impossible. Unless that's exactly what it was designed to do, Nathan said grimly. Look at this sequence. It's not trying to kill, it's testing for genetic compatibility. Searching for something specific in the DNA of other species. And only humans pass the test, Celine whispered. But why? What makes humans different? Nathan studied the data, his expression darkening. According to this, human DNA contains markers similar to an ancient species, one that existed long before any of our civilizations. Dr. Reese thought your condition was created by them, as some kind of genetic filter. A filter for what? That's what we need to find out. Nathan set course for the coordinates they'd extracted from the crystal. These lead to a facility in the outer rim. If Talon was being held there, maybe we can find more answers. Celine stared at her reflection in the viewport, watching the play of starlight across her silver skin. She'd spent so long believing she was cursed, never imagining her lethal touch might have a purpose. Now that purpose was leading her into even greater danger, with only a human who somehow survived her touch to rely on. As if reading her thoughts, Nathan spoke softly. We'll figure this out, Celine. Whatever the syndicate is planning, whatever your condition was meant for, we'll face it together. She turned to him, seeing the determination in his eyes. For the first time, she allowed herself to truly look at him, to see past the immunity to her touch and recognize the man who'd risked everything to help her. Why do you care so much about stopping them? Because I've seen what happens when people play God with other species' lives. He met her gaze. And because no one deserves to be turned into a weapon. The Starcaster streaked through hyperspace, carrying them toward answers that would challenge everything they thought they knew about their species' past, and perhaps their future. Behind them, Dr. Reese's sacrifice ensured their trail was cold. Ahead lay a facility that held secrets worth killing for, and the truth about why Celine's lethal touch had led her to humanity. The hunt intensifies. The abandoned research facility loomed before them, half buried in the red sand of the desert moon. Massive storm clouds churned overhead, occasional flashes of lightning illuminating the facility's weathered exterior. Nathan checked his scanner one final time as they approached the entrance. "No active power signatures," he reported, "but that doesn't mean we're alone. The Syndicate likes to leave surprises." Celine pulled her protective cloak tighter, more from habit than necessity. The fact that she couldn't accidentally kill Nathan still felt surreal. "Talon died here," she said softly. "I can feel it." Nathan glanced at her sharply. "Feel it?" "Since Dr. Reese's tests, I've been changing. Sensing things I couldn't before." She touched the wall, silver fingers tracing old scratch marks. "The pain lingers in places like this." They made their way through darkened corridors, emergency lights flickering to life as motion sensors detected their presence. The facility had been stripped of most equipment, but the architecture itself told a story, holding cells modified for different species, medical bays with restraints, observation rooms with one-way glass. "Over here," Nathan called, examining a sealed door. "This matches the location in Talon's data." He placed a breaching charge on the lock while Celine kept watch. The explosion echoed through the facility. As the smoke cleared, they found themselves staring into a vast chamber filled with stasis pods. Most were empty, but dried residue on their interior surfaces suggested long-term use. They were collecting them, Celine realized, moving between the pods. "Others like me. How many of my people did they take?" Nathan accessed a partially intact computer terminal. According to these logs, they were tracking genetic markers across multiple species. Looking for something they called the Awakening Protocol. He transferred data to his device. "There's more." They weren't just studying the lethal touch, they were trying to trigger specific genetic sequences. A distant rumble made them both freeze. "That wasn't thunder," Nathan said, drawing his weapon. "No," Celine agreed. "That was a ship landing." They moved quickly through the facility, but at each turn, they found their path blocked by sealed barriers. "They're hurting us," Nathan growled, trying another route. "Or protecting something," Celine countered. She pressed her hand against a wall, closing her eyes. There's something below us. Something important." Nathan checked their options. "The central shaft might give us access to lower levels, but we'll be exposed." "Then we'll be exposed." Celine's determination surprised even her. "I didn't come this far to run." They reached the shaft, a massive vertical tunnel descending into darkness. Maintenance ladders ran along its walls, disappearing into the depths. As they began their descent, voices echoed from above. "They're here somewhere," a gruff voice called. "Spread out and remember, the girl is worth more than your lives." Nathan and Celine exchanged glances, then continued downward. The air grew colder, staler. After what seemed like an eternity, they reached a sealed blast door marked, Project Genesis. "This is it," Celine whispered. "Whatever they were working toward, it's behind this door." Nathan examined the lock. "High-grade security. This could take." Celine placed her hand on the control panel. Silver thread spread from her fingers, seeping into the circuitry. The door shuddered, then opened. "That's new," Nathan said. "Like I said. I'm changing." The chamber beyond was vast, its walls covered in flowing script that seemed to move in the dim light. At its center stood a pillar of swirling energy, contained within a complex field of force. "It's beautiful," Celine breathed, approaching the pillar. The script on the walls pulsed in response to her presence. "It's ancient," Nathan added, studying the markings. These aren't just decorations, they're DNA sequences. The same ones we found in your genetic code. Before Celine could respond, slow clapping echoed through the chamber. From the shadows emerged a tall figure in an immaculate white suit. Magnificent, isn't she? The man's voice was cultured, almost gentle. The perfect fusion of ancient programming and modern evolution. Tell me, my dear, are you beginning to understand what you are? Nathan raised his weapon, but guards emerged from hidden alcoves, training rifles on them both. Director Roman, Nathan spat. Should have known you'd be behind this. Nathan Shaw, Roman smiled. Still playing hero? You should have stayed with the agency. We could have used someone with your unique resistance. Celine stepped forward, her skin rippling with barely contained energy. What am I? What did you do to my people? Do to them? Roman laughed. My dear, we freed them. Your species carries dormant genes from the architects, the beings who seeded this galaxy with life. Your lethal touch isn't a curse, it's a test, searching for genetic combinations that could unlock their legacy. And humans? Nathan asked. Why are we immune? Roman's eyes gleamed. Because humanity was their last creation. Their final attempt to create beings capable of containing their power. The Lumini were meant to find you, to awaken what sleeps in human DNA. But the process became corrupted, twisted over millennia. Until now, Celine realized. Until me. Precisely. Roman spread his arms. You're not just compatible with humans, Celine. You're evolving into something new. Something that could change everything. He stepped closer. Join us. Help us understand what you're becoming. Nathan moved to stand between them. She's not your lab rat, Roman. No, Roman agreed. She's so much more. And now that the process has begun, there's no stopping it. He signaled to his guards. Bring them both. Alive. The chamber erupted into chaos. Nathan fired at the guards while Celine's touch turned lethal for anyone who came near, anyone except the humans. The pillar of energy pulsed with increasing intensity, responding to the violence around it. The chamber's destabilizing. Roman shouted. Contain her. But Celine wasn't listening. Power coursed through her, the ancient script on the walls flowing into her silver skin like liquid light. She reached for Nathan's hand, and when their fingers touched, everything changed. The world exploded into brilliant white, and in that moment, both human and Lumini understood that their meeting hadn't been chance at all. They were part of something far older and far more dangerous than either of them had imagined, something that was only beginning to awaken. Breaking point. Pain brought Celine back to consciousness. Not physical pain, something deeper, as if her DNA itself was being rewritten. She opened her eyes to find herself in a sterile white room, surrounded by monitoring equipment. Nathan lay unconscious on a bed nearby, medical devices tracking his vital signs. The events in the chamber rushed back, the ancient technology, Director Roman's revelation about the architects, the surge of power that had connected her to Nathan. She tried to move, but energy restraints held her in place, humming with a familiar frequency. Fascinating, isn't it? Roman's voice came through hidden speakers. The changes in your cellular structure are unprecedented. You're becoming something entirely new. Celine turned her head to see him watching through an observation window. What did you do to Nathan? Nothing permanent. The fusion of energies in the chamber affected you both. His genetic structure is adapting, just like yours. Roman studied a data tablet. Though I must admit, the speed of integration exceeds our models. Your connection to him is accelerating the process. What process? Celine demanded, but she already knew. She could feel it, new awareness flowing through her, ancient memories surfacing like bubbles in dark water. The architects, they weren't trying to create weapons. No, Roman agreed. They were trying to create bridges. Links between species that could share their collective knowledge, their power. He approached the window. But power can be used in many ways. The Syndicate understands this. You don't understand anything. Nathan's voice was rough but strong. He'd woken without them noticing. The architects died out for a reason. Some knowledge should stay buried. Roman smiled. Is that what you really believe, Nathan? After everything you've seen? He pressed a button, and screens around them displayed genetic data. Look at yourselves. Human and Lumini, perfectly synchronized. The first successful fusion in 10,000 years. Celine closed her eyes, focusing on the new sensations flowing through her. Her silver skin rippled with patterns of light, responding to thoughts that weren't entirely her own. She could feel Nathan's presence in her mind, not just emotions, but memories, knowledge. The Syndicate isn't the only one who's been watching, Nathan said suddenly. Did you really think a discovery this big would go unnoticed? Roman's smile faltered as alarms began blaring throughout the facility. What did you do? I sent a signal, Nathan grinned. The moment we entered that chamber. There are some secrets too dangerous for any one group to control. Explosions rocked the facility. Through their new connection, Celine felt Nathan's satisfaction, and his plan. The energy restraints used frequencies similar to the ancient chamber. Frequencies she now understood. She reached out with her mind, not her body. The restraints flickered and died. In the chaos of flashing alerts and distant weapons fire, she moved to Nathan's bed, touching the controls with silver fingers that now glowed with internal light. You can't stop this, Roman snapped, ordering guards to the room. The process has already begun. The architect's legacy was never meant for people like you, Celine finished. She helped Nathan stand, supporting him as decades of buried genetic code activated in his cells. They didn't leave weapons or tools of conquest. They left understanding. Through their shared awareness, they moved in perfect synchronization. Guards burst through the door, but Celine's touch was different now, controlled, selective. Those she chose to affect fell unconscious rather than dead. The chamber was just the beginning, Nathan said, his eyes showing traces of silver light. The real changes are still coming. They fought their way through the facility, their new abilities growing stronger with each passing moment. Celine could access computer systems with a thought, while Nathan instinctively understood alien technology they encountered. Behind them, sounds of battle indicated that multiple factions had arrived, all fighting for control of the facility. They reached a hangar bay just as Roman's voice echoed through the facility, "You can't run from what you're becoming." The architects chose humanity for a reason, the same reason they engineered the Lumini. This evolution cannot be stopped. He's right about one thing, Celine said as they commandeered a sleek transport. We can't run from this. The changes, the connection between us, it's growing stronger. Nathan programmed the launch sequence, his movements sure despite never having seen this model of ship before. Then we don't run. We find others like us. The architects didn't just leave their legacy in two species. As they lifted off, Celine accessed the facility's databases through her new abilities. Information poured through her mind, locations of other research sites, data about genetic markers in different species, evidence of other successful hybridizations. There's something else, she said, processing the flood of information. The Syndicate found records of an architect installation. A place where they left messages for whoever achieved the first fusion. Let me guess, it's somewhere incredibly dangerous. Of course. She managed a smile despite the pain of transformation still coursing through her. Are you sure you want to keep going? This connection between us, it's changing us both. We might not be human or Lumini by the end. Nathan took her hand, silver light pulsing where their skin met. Maybe that's the point. The architects didn't want us to stay what we were. They wanted us to become something new. Together. Through their bond, Celine felt the truth of his words, and something more. Emotions that had been growing since that first meeting on the space station, now impossible to hide from each other. The ship broke atmosphere as multiple factions battled for control of the facility below. Ahead lay uncertainty, danger, and the promise of more changes. But for the first time since discovering her lethal touch, Celine felt truly alive. She wasn't a weapon or a curse. She was a bridge between worlds, and she wasn't alone anymore. As they prepared to jump to hyperspace, Nathan studied the coordinates from the database. You know, this is probably a trap. The Syndicate, rival agencies, maybe even people we haven't met yet, they'll all be hunting us now. Let them come, Celine replied, watching silver light dance beneath both their skins. We've got some surprises of our own. The stars stretched into lines of light as they jumped, leaving behind a facility where humanity's first contact with the architect's legacy had awakened something that couldn't be contained. The true question wasn't whether they could survive what was coming, it was whether the galaxy was ready for what they would become. Liberation. The architect installation hung in space like a frozen dance of geometric shapes, its crystalline surfaces refracting starlight in impossible patterns. After 3 weeks of running, fighting, and changing, Celine and Nathan had finally found it. Their stolen ship approached cautiously, its sensors detecting no other vessels in the area, which only made them more suspicious. Beautiful but deadly, Nathan observed, his once blue eyes now swirling with silver light. Like someone else I know. Celine smiled, her own transformation more apparent with each passing day. Her silver skin now rippled with complex patterns of light that responded to her emotions. Through their deepening bond, she felt Nathan's mix of anxiety and anticipation. The Syndicate will be right behind us. Along with every other group that detected the energy signature when we transformed. Nathan brought up the sensor readings. The installation sending out a signal, like it knows we're here. It probably does. Celine touched the ship's console, connecting to its systems directly through her evolved abilities. The architects left this for us, for whoever achieved the first true fusion of their genetic legacy. As if in response to her words, a beam of energy shot from the installation, scanning their ship. Both Celine and Nathan gasped as ancient information flooded their minds through their shared connection. It's a key, Nathan realized. The installation won't open for anyone else. They made sure only beings who'd completed the transformation could access their final messages. They docked at a crystalline port that formed specifically for their ship. The installation's interior was a maze of flowing geometric patterns, all pulsing with the same energy they'd encountered in the chamber where they'd first transformed. But here, the technology was intact, untouched by time or lesser beings. Through their enhanced senses, they could read the patterns in the walls, not just genetic code now, but the story of the architects themselves. A species that had achieved technological godhood, only to realize their advancement had come at the cost of connection, to each other, to other species, to the fundamental fabric of life itself. They didn't die out, Celine whispered, reading the patterns. They evolved. Transcended. But they couldn't take everyone with them. So they left behind the seeds of transformation, Nathan continued, understanding flowing between them. Genetic markers in compatible species, waiting to be combined in just the right way. They reached a vast chamber at the installation's heart. At its center floated a sphere of pure energy, similar to what they'd seen in the Syndicate's facility but far more refined. As they approached, it projected images into their minds, showing other pairs like them throughout the galaxy, other species beginning their own transformations. We're not alone, Celine realized. There are others, dozens of species pairs, all starting to find each other, all beginning to change. A familiar voice interrupted their revelation. And now we know where to find them all. They turned to see Director Roman entering the chamber, flanked by Syndicate troops. But he had changed too. His skin showed signs of artificial enhancement, crude attempts to replicate their transformation. Did you think we wouldn't follow you? Roman's voice held an edge of madness. That we wouldn't have tracking devices in your ship? The Syndicate has spent centuries preparing for this moment. Look at yourself, Roman, Nathan said. You're trying to force an evolution you're not ready for. The Architect's gift can't be stolen or copied. Then we'll take it from you directly. Roman signaled his troops. The genetic samples we collected during your captivity showed us it's possible to extract the changes. It won't be pleasant, but... He was interrupted by new alarms. Through the installation systems, Celine and Nathan felt more ships arriving, dozens of them, representing every major power in known space. You led them all right to us, Celine realized, understanding Roman's plan. Started a war for control of the installation. The ultimate prize, Roman smiled. Worth any cost. But something was happening. The sphere of energy pulsed, and Celine felt new information flowing into her mind. She grabbed Nathan's hand, silver light dancing where their skin met. They don't understand, she said. The installation, the transformation, it was never about power. Through their bond, Nathan saw what she saw, the true purpose of the Architect's gift. It was about choice, he said. The choice to move forward together, or stay locked in endless competition. The sphere expanded, filling the chamber with light. In that moment, Celine and Nathan moved as one, their transformed abilities working in perfect harmony. Energy flowed through them into the installation systems, activating protocols that had waited millennia for this moment. No! Roman raised a weapon, but it was too late. The installation transmitted a signal that reached every ship in the sector, every inhabited world, every being capable of receiving it. Not tactical data or weapon schematics, but understanding, the same choice the Architects had faced, now offered to all. Through their connection, Celine and Nathan broadcast their own experience, the pain and beauty of transformation, the power of choosing to become something new together. They showed the gathered forces what the Architects had intended, not a weapon or a tool of control, but a gateway to collective evolution. They left us a choice, Celine's voice reached every mind in range. To remain separate, fighting endless wars for temporary advantage. Or to begin a new journey, discovering what we can become together. The transformation can't be forced or stolen, Nathan added. It has to be chosen, accepted, earned through understanding. The sphere's light touched everyone in range, showing them glimpses of possible futures, paths of separation leading to destruction, paths of cooperation leading to transformation. In that moment, the truth became clear. The Architects hadn't abandoned the galaxy, they had given it time to mature, to be ready for real change. Roman and his troops fell to their knees, overwhelmed by the vision. Above them, the gathered fleets hung in space, their crews experiencing the same revelation. The installation had served its purpose, not as a weapon to be claimed, but as a message to be understood. Days later, as representatives from 100 worlds gathered to discuss what they'd experienced, Celine and Nathan stood in the installation's heart. Their transformation was still progressing, showing them new possibilities with each passing moment. What now? Nathan asked, watching silver light dance beneath both their skins. We've shown them the choice, but not everyone will accept it. We find the others, Celine said. The pairs like us who are already changing. Build bridges between worlds. She turned to him, emotions flowing freely through their bond. The Architects showed us the door, but we choose how to walk through it. Nathan pulled her close, their transformed bodies resonating with shared energy. Together? Together, she agreed, sealing the promise with a kiss that no longer brought death, but possibility. Around them, the installation hummed with ancient power, its purpose fulfilled. Humanity and the Lumini had found their way to each other, opening a door for all species to follow. The legacy of the architects wasn't a weapon or a prize to be won, it was an invitation to transcend the boundaries that kept them apart. As Celine and Nathan prepared to face their new future, they knew their story was just beginning. The galaxy was changing, evolution calling to those ready to answer. And this time, no one had to change alone.